Hello everyone, it's Annie and today I'm here with the tarot book tag. So I have my tarot cards here. They're from Yoshi Yoshitani's deck about the mythical legends from around the world. So I definitely recommend you check out this deck. But there are so many fun, interesting questions in this tag. I was inspired to do this by, I think her name is Little Wolf, so I'll link her video down below. You should definitely check it out. And without further ado, here's the first question. The first card is the Fool. So the question is a book that is like very nostalgic for me. So the first book is Timekeeper by Tara Sim. This is, I believe, Tara Sim's debut, maybe not, but it is a young adult trilogy that was really, really important to me when it first came out. I believe it was released in either 2015 or 2016. So I was in college, but like a freshman in college. And it is very nostalgic for me because I remember just reading this book and being amazed that a book like this could be published with LGBT representation in the main characters. It was so important to me to see that. And this book is also really interesting. It is steampunk, which normally isn't my thing exactly, but it's super interesting. It deals with time and like there's a stoppage of time going on and like gods that live in these clocks that the main character's job it is to fix. Like he goes around England and fixes these clock towers and he meets a clock spirit and they fall in love. It is so good. And I have not seen anyone on Booktube talk about this series, so I really recommend you check it out. It is so, so good. The next card is The Magician, which is so beautiful. I love this illustration, and it is to pick a main character that is really goal-oriented and motivated. So I am picking Xifeng from The Forest of Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dao. I love Xifeng so much. She is ruthless. She is evil, pretty much, or very, very, very morally gray. But she is the protagonist of this series. I have not read the second one, but I loved this first one, and I think that it's really underrated. She will stop at nothing to achieve her goal that was prophesized by her aunt through tarot cards, actually, that she would become the Empress of the kingdom in which she lives. But she has to embrace the darkness within her in order to have her destiny come true. So that is super interesting, and she definitely does embrace that darkness, and I just absolutely loved reading about all her evil deeds that she did. It was such a wonderful book. The next card is the Empress, which is to pick a book with a strong mother figure. So I'm going to pick Kaikei, which I just finished. I recently got this from Book of the Month. I loved it so much. I gave it 5 stars. Like pretty much when I was halfway through it, I knew it was going to be 5 stars, or really from the very first page. The writing is so gorgeous. And Kaikei is one of the strongest female characters I have ever read. Her growth and her ebbs and flows through time, you really go through her whole entire life from birth to when she is an old woman and her children are grown, and it is just an amazing retelling of the poem The Ramayana from Kaikei's point of view. And she is a strong motherly figure because the original poem centers around one of her sons named Rama, and she was not really a big part of that. She was considered evil, but this is from her point of view and kind of makes her a sympathetic character. And it shows her love for all of her children. She has 4 sons, and how her love for them kind of creates conflict in her life as she tries to keep balance in this kingdom that she is the queen of, and it is so good. Kaikei is such a wonderfully complex woman, and seriously, if you haven't picked this up yet, you really need to. The hype is real. The next card is The Lovers, with this lovely reimagining of Beauty and the Beast. I am going to pick, the question is my favorite couple in books, which is really, really difficult to decide, but I'm going to pick Kiyoshi and her little firebending girlfriend, Rangi. I don't know if I would say they're my absolute favorite. I mean, this book was a 5-star for me and I absolutely loved it, and I loved its sequel as well. But just the fact that this big character and then this really strong, respected character in the Avatar universe was given a girlfriend just made me so happy, and I absolutely loved their dynamic. Kyoshi and Rangi had like a really cool teasing friendship at first, and it grew into something more, and it was just such a breath of fresh air to read. I loved it, especially for something kind of aimed at, you know, children. So it's really so wonderful to see. I just loved their relationship so much, and Rangi's so cute. The next card is Justice, which I actually had kind of a hard time. The prompt is to pick a book that made me feel heard or represented. So I have a few that are contenders. First, I have Ophelia After All and Last Night at the Telegraph Club for their really amazing portrayals of young women kind of figuring out their sexualities and dealing with both teenage drama and bigger issues in their families and stuff. And then we have Honey Girl, which I think did a really great job. When I read it, I was really struggling with figuring out my path in life, especially with regarding my career. I had thought I was going into academia, just like the main character of this, but I ended up not. And while our situations are definitely different, I just felt really heard that an adult character like this would still be struggling with figuring out herself and what she wanted out of life. The next card is Death, and this prompt is an interesting one. It's to pick a book that forever changed me. So I immediately knew my answer to this. That is Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. I know I've talked about this quite a lot on my channel. This book, when I first read it, it came out in 2013. I picked it up from the library and I was flabbergasted by the genius of Ann Leckie. Her world building really sparked something in me. Reading this made me realize, like, really solidified my love for sci-fi as a genre in all things. I fell in love with this book, with the characters, Breck and Lieutenant On and everyone. I loved them so much. I loved all of the worlds and empires and complex politics that Ann Leckie built in this. This book really changed me. I remember reading it and finishing it and just putting it down and being like, mind blown by what I read. You need to read this. It is a little bit hard to explain, but basically, on a remote icy planet, the soldier known as Breck is drawing closer to completing her quest. Once she was the Justice of Torin, a colossal starship with an artificial intelligence linking thousands of soldiers in the service of the Raj, the empire that conquered the galaxy. Now an act of treachery has ripped it all away, leaving her with one fragile human body, unanswered questions, and a burning desire for vengeance. Yes, so Breck is an ancillary. She is the only one left of this huge artificial intelligence consciousness that was once a warship. God, it's just so amazing. There's so much that I could say about this. There's so much interesting tidbits of religion and class and tea as well. Tea plays a big part in the world building here, and language especially. So interesting because Ann Leckie only uses she, her pronouns for every character in this book, regardless of their gender or sex. It is so good. It's just so good. She plays with our expectations for what a culture is and really turns them on their head. It is so good. Okay, I'll stop now. But really, you have to read this. Next is The Devil, and this prompt is to talk about a character who I want to scream at because they frustrate me so much. So I have Baru Cormorant here by Seth Dickinson, and if you've read this, you know I won't give spoilers. You'll just have to read to find out, but if you read it, you know that what Baru does at the end of this book will make you scream. I know a lot of people who have said that they won't continue with the series because of the ending to this first book. I have yet to continue with it, but I definitely want to. I actually have books 2 and 3 sitting on my shelf over there, waiting for me to get the courage to open them because Beru Cormorant is ruthless. She would actually fit for one of the first prompts in this video, like a character that will stop at nothing to achieve their goals. That is definitely Beru, and I wish I could tell you what happens because it was just so shocking. And like I was reading and saying, oh, like, no, there's no way she's gonna do this. And then she did it, and I was very upset. So I love this. This book basically, it takes place on an island that this Empire of Masks comes and conquers, and Beru Cormorant sees them rewriting her culture, criminalizing her customs, and even disposing of one of her fathers. But instead of being rash and fighting back and being easily defeated, Beru has patience, and she infiltrates the empire by becoming one of their most trusted accountants. And she takes them down from within, and oh my god, I love it so much. This is one of my favorite books of all time. And yeah, I can't wait to read the second one, but I really hope she redeems herself. The second one is even called The Monster Beru Cormorant, so like, you see where I'm coming from. And next we have The Tower, which is a book that destroys a certain stereotype. Now, I recently read Shiranje Zhao's middle grade debut, which was Zachary Ying and the Dragon Emperor. And I loved this book. I think that the author, I actually liked this more than Iron Widow, kind of surprisingly. I did not expect that, but I did. I think their humor really, really works for middle grade, but I digress. The stereotype that I think this book did really, really well in circumventing was the monolith, like Chinese people being homogenous. Because in the West, we often think of Chinese people as being just Han Chinese and being just one ethnicity, but that is not true. The protagonist of this middle grade story, named Zach, he and his family are Uyghur Muslims, and also there's another character named Melissa who is also a racial minority in China, and it very, very much has a lot of commentary about how these minorities are treated by the Chinese government and the atrocities that have been committed against them. And I think this book does such a good job of highlighting that, weaving it in to be an important part of the story, especially such a great job at highlighting it for the audience. It's so important that kids are kind of informed about things like this from early on, and I just loved it. Such a great book. Even though it talks about heavy topics like this, it does such a great job at making the story itself really fun and adventurous and just really fast-paced and exciting. So I highly recommend this book. It is so good. And then next we have The Star, which is such a beautiful illustration, and this is to pick an inspirational book. There are so many I could have picked. I could have picked Educated, which is one of my favorite memoirs of all time, so I definitely recommend that as well. But I'm going to pick The Girl with the Latin Voice for this prompt. I loved this so much. It was one of my favorite books that I read last year in 2021. It's about a girl living in Nigeria, and she comes from a very poor family, and she's basically sold to be married to this horrible man that she does not want to marry, and she's a child when this happens. And she manages to escape, but she escapes into basically indentured slavery. She's promised that she would be paid for her work, but she never was, and she is stuck serving this horrible rich woman in Lagos. It's such an inspirational story. The way the writing is, the voice that the author uses for the main character is so special, and I highly recommend listening to the audiobook as well. The narrator does a great job, very emotional job as well. The main character learns through reading books from the library of the woman's house that she cleans, and she is eventually saved. You know, it's not a spoiler, I don't think, and goes to university, and it is so inspirational to see her journey through becoming a really strong and educated woman. So I loved this book and I highly recommend it. And then last question is the sun, which I promise I did not do this on purpose, but the book is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, because the question is, who is an author that you think should become a household name? And that is definitely Shelley Parker Chan. They are an amazing author. When I read this is another 5-star. I could not believe that this was their debut book. It was just so well written, so well thought out and plotted. The characterizations are so superbly done, just impeccably done. I loved that so much. There's so much historical research that had to go into this, and oh, it is so good. I really believe that Shelley Parker Chan is going to hopefully write more. I know there's a planned sequel to this, and I really, really hope that they write even more. I will read anything that they write, and they really deserve to be a household name because of how stellar this debut was. I can't believe it. If you don't know what this is about, can be described as Mulan / Song of Achilles. It's about a young peasant girl in China who takes her brother's identity. Basically, she steals his identity when he dies from starvation. She's the only member of her family left living, and she goes to become a monk in his name because there are no other opportunities for women in this era and civilization that she lives in. So she does that. She becomes a monk. She eventually becomes the general of this army, and it is amazing. There's an amazing antagonist character who's a eunuch, who, such great character. Oh my god, the foil between the main character and that eunuch, oh, it's so good. Okay, yeah, I can talk about this book forever. It is so good and you need to read it. So thank you so much for watching this tag video. It was a lot of fun, and I believe Jess from Books Past Bedtime is also a tarot fan, so I tag her, and then I tag anyone. I think Mafalda Reads is also a tarot fan. She does Tarot Picks My TBR, so I'm going to tag both of them down below and link their channels. So thank you so much for watching. Of course, anyone who wants to do this tag, please feel free to, and make sure to link your videos down in the comments because I'd love to watch them. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!